Let's take a look at our vines in the first week of July. The first set of videos here, I actually videotaped those or created those back in the middle of May, which was like a month and a half into growth. The second half of this video will be the growth we've experienced up till July 1st. So we've got two sections here. It'll be the middle of May and then July 6 weeks later. So let's take a look at our vines and what they look like 6 weeks ago in the middle of May. So take a close look at this vine right here. This is the first vine that we were talking about for the last couple of sessions. This vine was up to about the cordon wire, about right here, 3 weeks ago. Now it's well above the last cordon wire, as you can see. This one here, we cut it off all the way at the bottom, and what happened was I had two shoots come up out of the bottom. You'll see the one shoot that's right here. It came out of the spur that I cut, and I was hoping there was like one bud and two bud spurs, but I took those off. This shoot that came up right out of the scion is the one that's doing the best growth right now. So this one right here coming up out is the one that you will see that goes all the way up pretty much to the top of the cordon wire after about a month's worth of growth. So we're going to be keeping that one, and we're not going to touch this one at all. This one is just going to go, and we're going to let it grow and do its thing. Now take a look at vine number 2. This is Cabernet Sauvignon. The other one I just showed you was Cabernet Sauvignon as well. Now this one, take a look at what it looked like just 3 weeks ago. There was very little growth. Now, if you remember right, I cut this one right at the fruiting wire. So I actually cut it right here. If you can see there, you can see the fruiting wire, and you can see right where I cut it. And from that, I actually have two really nice cordons. I have one cordon that's going all the way back over to here into that mess, and the other cordon is going all the way over, actually too far. So what I'm going to do on this is I'm actually going to trim the two ends of the cordons. So if you look at this more closely, we've got the nice trunk coming up, and I've got a cordon going that way and a cordon going that way. What I ended up doing was, as they were growing, I just laid them down very delicately, not to break them off. So I've got this cordon that's coming all the way over, and it actually almost touches the other vine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a center point about right here, and I'm cutting it off. I'm cutting off that cordon right there. Now what that's going to do is that's going to stop the growth of that particular cordon. It's going to get bigger, but now I'm going to get shoots coming out of each one of these nodes along here, which will come up through here and become my spurs for next year. On this side, it's a little more difficult, only because I've got a cordon from the vine over here. That stops right there. You probably can't see it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this right at that particular cordon, so those two will match up. So now I've got a cordon going both directions. Now remember, this is only the second year of growth, but because of the aggressive growth on this, these two cordons are going to be pretty full in the next month or so. If you look, there's another shoot in the back, and I'm going to actually cut that shoot. There's one right here, and there's one right there. So by cutting those off, that gives me some very nice growth that's going to be coming out of that over the next few months. And I'll probably do another video later, and you'll be able to see how much growth we've got out of that. So as a final look, this is what it looks like right now in the end of March or middle of March. So let's take a look at my third vine. Now this vine, if you remember, is a Grenache vine. This vine I ended up last year, or a couple months ago. If you can see, I've got a nice little cordon going to the right, cordon going to the left, and if you take a look at this, we've got flowering going on in these grapevines, going to the right and going to the left. Now, what I haven't done on this is I have not done shoot thinning. And I'm going to have to do some shoot thinning on this, because if you take a look, there's just way too many shoots and there's way too many grapes coming in as well. But I'm not going to be doing my grape thinning just yet. I'm going to wait for the grapes to get a little bigger so that I can get rid of the ones that are not really the best grapes for this particular environment. Now I realize you're not going to be able to see this very well, but what I want to do now is I want to do some shoot thinning. I want to take out the shoots that I don't want to grow. And what I mean by that is I need about four fingers in between each shoot, and those shoots next year will become my spurs. So let's take a look at this, what we have here. Now I'm messing up my grapes. I've got a shoot, you probably can't see this very well, but I'm going to try and show it up to you. I've got a shoot coming up right here. The next shoot, if you can see it, goes down. So I'm taking that one out, because I don't want any these shoots going downward. I want all my shoots. The next shoot you can see here goes straight up. Really nice. I've got 2 clusters of grapes on it, and I've got 2 on that one, so that's pretty good. Now 4 fingers over is another shoot right here. If I go 4 fingers, there's a shoot right there. If I go, oh man, this is hard to see. I've got a shoot there. I like this one going up better than I like that one, but really it's too close together. I'm going to get rid of this shoot here. Except for now, I'm just going to cut it off there. So if you can take a look, I've got a shoot. Got 4 fingers to my next shoot. Got another one right there. I'm going to beat that a little tight. Then I've got a shoot here. And I've got one right here. I got one there. I got some extra stuff there. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've got 7 shoots on that side. And I thin those out okay. Coming up this side, what do I have? Now this is a little different. I've got a shoot right here, and I've got a shoot coming off the bottom. So let's get rid of that one shoot coming off the bottom. Let me get it out of there. So I've got 1 there, come over 4, got another shoot there, come over 4, there's a little shoot sticking out right there on the bottom, 4 there, got 4 to there, but I've got 1 coming out the bottom. See, I don't like the ones coming out the bottom. Got a nice big shoot right there, got a shoot sticking out right here, which I don't really want. Let's remove that shoot. Got a shoot coming up the back. I've got a shoot right here going up. This one goes way over here. There's a shoot right there. Where's the end of this thing? Oh, I got 2 shoots coming out right here. Get rid of that one. And there's my end. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I've got essentially about 8 shoots on both sides. I did a little thinning, thinned out the clusters as well. As you can see, I've got flowering and little grapes on those. So I'm going to thin out the grapes on this later, but right now I'm not going to really touch that for quite a while. I'm going to let it grow and do its thing. But there's my 2 cordons. So I've done 1, 2, and this one my double cordon. The next one we're going to do is the one with the single cordon. So let's take a look at that. I know this is really hard to see. So on this one, which is Grenache, if you remember for the last videos, I had 1 trunk coming up, and I turned and caused that one to have a cordon going to the left. So I've got a cordon going to the left, and then I wanted a cordon to grow right out of there. As you can see, this right here is my other cordon that goes the other way. And what I did was I just laid it down a couple weeks ago when it was growing. So now I've got a cordon going that side. And I've already cut the end off right here. If you take a look at it, I got a shoot coming up right there, a shoot coming up there, one there, one there, one there, and one right there. So I've got a bunch of shoots coming up, and those shoots then will go up through the catch wire for the year. Now, I need to thin this out, and this one is a little tight in there, so let's take a look and see how we're going to thin this one out. I know this is going to be a little difficult to watch, but I'm going to try and show you this as well. I've got a shoot right here. See this nice big shoot? I go 4 over. I've got another shoot going up right there. So those 2 big shoots right there. And from there, if I take a look and see what I got, I've got another 4, but I've actually got 2 shoots coming out of here. I'm going to take one and throw one away. And that gives me, from that shoot there, I can go over, there's one here. There's actually a shoot right here. I think I'm going to leave. These are pretty close. You know what? I'm going to get rid of this one right here. It's going downward. That gives me a shoot here. And I got another shoot there. And I've got another shoot right there. But I've got one. This shoot is, there's a shoot right here coming off the bottom. Let's get rid of this one. So that gives me one there. I've got a shoot coming up right there. I've got a shoot. I've got 2 shoots coming out right here. But this one is sticking straight out and going down. Got a shoot right there going straight up. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So on that one side, I've got 8 shoots going up. And now I've thinned it out a bit. So I'll have 8 shoots on that side. And let's take a look on the other side. I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There'll be 8 on that side. So that particular cordon or Grenache vine will have 8 spurs next year on both sides. That one will have 8 spurs next year on both sides. So we're doing pretty good. Not bad at all. 8 spurs next year in the 3rd year. Remember I told you we're trimming this for next year's growth. So next year in our 3rd year of growth, we're going to have 8 spurs and 8 spurs. 8 spurs. A spur will have 2 shoots coming out of it. 2 shoots coming out will give me 2 clusters. Each cluster will be about a half a pound. So that means that each one of my spurs should give me 2 pounds of grapes. So if that's the case, on this particular one, I should have 25 pounds of grapes. That's not right. I added that wrong, didn't I? Because I've got 20 pounds, maybe 20 pounds of grapes. But, you know, I'm being really optimistic here. Who knows? But let me take you up in the vineyard and show you some of the other vines that we've done already. This is the one vine that I've been showing you through these series just now. It's got a pretty big trunk on it. I was able to get 2 cordons at the beginning of the season. And we've got really nice growth coming out of it. I thinned it out already. I've got about 8 shoots, or I'll have 8 spurs on both sides coming out of this one. So this one's doing really well. Let me show you this one here. This one we cut right at the fruiting wire. So we actually cut this one right here at the fruiting wire. As you can see, we got a cut right there. You can already see it. It is a cut right here. And we've got 2 really nice shoots coming out. Look at the size of that shoot right there. There's a shoot right there and another shoot right there, and I've got a 3rd one as my backup. And they're both laying down. Sorry about that. They're both going out and will be good cordons for me next year. This is one of the grapevines I had to cut off all the way down and have it restart his 1st year, and he's doing real well. He's already up to the catch wire, or to the fruiting wire, so I'll be removing the sleeve here in the next day or so when I get a chance. And I'll just show you a few of them here. This is the Grenache grapevines, all of them cut differently through this row here, but you can see we've got pretty good growth being the middle of May. currently the first week of July. Those last set of videos were done about 6 weeks ago. We finally now have some warm weather hitting us. It's been a very long winter. We literally did not get temperature above 90 degrees until the first week of July. So 6 months with overcast, cold weather. We actually had 90 days in a row of less than average temperature. So let's take a look at our vines the first week of July. So let's take a look at our first vine that we've been using in our testing here. This is what the vine looked like about 6 weeks ago. In the middle of May, this is what the vine looked like. It was just starting out. As I said before, we cut this one all the way down to the scion, and then a couple of shoots came up, of which then I cut one of the shoots off and have now created a cordon out of one of the shoots. Take a look at the shoot coming up, and this cordon then goes all the way across over to about right here. Right, where is it? Where is it? Right here. So I cut it off right there. And you can see this thing is doing really well. We cut it back to the scion. Now we've got one cordon going to the right and a lot of shoots going up, which will be our spurs for next year. I have one cordon coming in, which will be really hard to see. There's a cordon right here. This cordon, this will be my cordon. This shoot right here will be the cordon going from right here along this wire. So that will be my cordon for this group. So we're doing pretty good going into our second year of growth on this one. So looking at the second vine we have in our display, this is what it looked like 6 weeks ago. Now remember, on this particular vine, we actually cut it right at the fruiting wire. So we cut it right at the fruiting wire, and then as two shoots were coming up, you can see right here, there's actually where I cut it right there. And I had a shoot come up right there and a shoot come up right there. And you take a look at it. And then those shoots I then laid down as they were growing from there and there, and then across this part right here. I laid them down, and then from that, you can see I have shoots coming up, and then those shoots again next year will be my spurs. Now for these two vines, these Cabernet Sauvignon, you notice they're not very high compared to the other two in the group. What will happen is I've still got another 4 months of growth. So I'm assuming and I'm hoping that those two vines will be looking like these in the next few months. So that's what the second vine looks like. Now the third vine in our group, which is a Grenache. Here's what it looked like 6 weeks ago. This one, if you remember, we had two cordons that I laid down on both sides, and you can see them very well defined right here. I've got two cordons coming up both sides on the fruiting wire. I've got shoots coming up from both of those. Some of them are bigger than others, obviously, but the shoots are growing really well. And I've got some grapes, and I've left one cluster of grapes on the bigger shoots. As you can see right here, these grapes right here are actually on one shoot, and that shoot's pretty big. I've got another one right here. You take a look at these grapes. These grapes, I'm going to keep that cluster on that shoot as well. So I've got a couple of clusters on this grapevine, but it has grown up, and I've got some wire up high to do an arch. And this is doing almost exactly what I want. I've got a few more shoots coming up, but looks pretty good. Now let's take a look at the fourth Grenache vine in our display here. You can see the vines are pretty big. Now this is what it looked like 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks ago, we had some growth, but nothing like what we have now. Take a look at the growth we've got out of these two vines here. Pretty good. Now you can really see on this particular one, all I did was I have a shoot I had a cordon that I laid down right there, and then this cordon is actually from this year. This is from this year's growth that goes across and I clipped off. And if you look, I got about 6 shoots coming up off of that cordon. And I've got about 8 shoots coming up off of this cordon. And those will then next year turn into my spurs. So this grapevine is doing really well. I haven't done a lot of grape thinning. I'm leaving a few grapes on just to see how they handle it. I may be cutting some of those off because I don't want a whole lot of grapes coming out this second year. This is the nice big grapevine I've been showing you. This is a Grenache vine. Here's what it looked like about 6 weeks ago. This is what it looks like now. We've got some great growth. We've got some grapes growing on this thing like crazy. I've not been coming over here and thinned out the grapes yet, but this grapevine has been doing really well. The stalk on it, the trunk on it is huge compared to what it was last year. Now remember, this is only really 1.5 years old, and look at the size of that trunk. The trunk is huge. So this one's doing really well. Take a look at this vine. Now this vine, here's what it looked like 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks ago, I actually had 3 shoots coming up. What I did was I cut off the middle shoot that was going up and laid down the other 2 shoots to make a cordon. And out of those cordons, I've got a bunch of grapes, which I'm going to be trimming off. But these Grenache really do well in the heat. Not bad at all. This particular vine, here's what it looked like 6 weeks ago. It wasn't even out of its shoot yet. I took it out of its shoot a couple days after that video, and now I've got some very nice growth. I was able to lay down the shoot as it came up, if you can see it. Yeah, so as the shoot came up, I actually laid it down. So there's one cordon, and then coming out right here is another shoot that's coming up, which will be my cordon going to the left next year. So you can kind of see this is how much growth we've had in just 6 weeks. This last section of Grenache I want to show you. Now this is what it looked like 6 weeks ago. We had some growth. We had some flowers for the grapes, and we had some good growth. But take a look at it now. This is the first week of July with some good heat. And you can see, I haven't thinned out the grapes yet, but I have got grapes going crazy on these vines. And these vines, again, are Grenache. They're well up above the top catch wire. These are about probably 7 feet tall. And you can see all along, I've got lots of grapes down below. I've already gone through and pulled the leaves to expose the grapes to the sun. So it's not too bad. I want to show you 2 examples of these vines that I have here on the Grenache. Now this particular vine, this vine right here, I actually cut it right at the cordon wire. So if you take a closer look at it, this vine was cut. You can see I cut it right here. This is right at the cordon wire when I cut it back in February when I was pruning. Now this year I've got a shoot coming out right here. This big shoot came out from the top, and I put it that way as my cordon. And then right here, this shoot came out. It's pretty big, as you can see, going up, and then that is going to the left. So those will both be my cordons for next year. Both of them have about 8 to 10 shoots coming out of it. So that will be, I will lay these down. I'm going to lay these cordons, if you can see them up there at the sketch wire, I'll lay these cordons down here on the fruiting wire next year. Let me give you one more example. On this particular vine, I had a couple little mistakes on it, but it's going to be okay. First of all, this grapevine, it's a Grenache grapevine. It's only 1.5 years old, actually. Look at the size of the shoot on it. And what I did was I cut this one right at the fruiting wire. See, I cut it above the fruiting wire. In fact, I cut it right here. So there was no growth on it in February. And since then, I've got a shoot coming out right there. And I've got another shoot coming out right here. One will be the cordon for next year going that way. And this lower one will be the cordon going this way. Right now they're up in the catch wires because of the amount of growth I've had out of these. Each one of those has about, after pruning, there's anywhere from 8 to 10 shoots that will turn into my spurs for next year. So one last piece, I want to show you the Cabernet Sauvignon. Now the Cabernet Sauvignon has been taking a little more TLC. It's taking a little more work to keep these Cabernet Sauvignons growing or trained, only because they don't like heat as much as that Grenache does. But you can see this one here, I've left a couple grapes on, I'll be removing those. That Cabernet Sauvignon is coming up nicely and it's got some shoots going up and pretty good. On this one here, same thing. Just like on the Grenache, I actually cut this one right at the fruiting wire. It was cut right here. I've got a shoot going to the left, a shoot going to the right, and those will be my cordons for next year. But both of them have about 8 to 10 shoots coming out of them, as you can see there, and those will turn into the spurs for next year. So with a little bit of help, I can get these Cabernets moving and not stress about them as much. They just don't grow as much as the Grenache. So in closing, you can see we've had some nice growth out of these vines. The vines actually are only 1.5 years old. These are going into their second growing season. I'm going to be thinning out some of the grapes. I've already done leaf thinning and shoot thinning. So in closing, I'm probably not going to update this video until probably maybe September, just to get some time. That'll be 2 months from now. We still have 4 months of growth. So I really expect us to start getting quite a bit of growth out of this. I may wait until we get veraison and show you a few of the grapes that we kept on the vines just to see what's going on. So this is Jeff here in Gavilan Hills Vineyard. Glad you had us. Please subscribe, follow along, and until next time, this is Jeff, and we're out of here.